Hi there. I wanted to get back into American Miscellany, but before that, look at this. You see this crazy little tomato here? Look at that thing. Being sprouted right out from the ground. Not from the ground, I'm sorry, from the wall. Do you see that? See where it sprouted from? Right there. From a little crack in the stone wall. There's an entire tomato growing from that spot. There it is. Might eat it tomorrow. Delightful, beautiful, and a fitting introduction to our next essay, essay number 43. And we are here reading American Miscellany. Our subject is the boundlessness of the material universe. So this book, American Miscellany, was published in 1865. We've just finished reading a little essay on Neapolitans on the seashore. And now we're moving on to our next subject on page 108, essay number 43, the boundlessness of the material universe. It will be immediately suggested by the intelligent reader that that which is material cannot be boundless, and that therefore the title of the article conveys to the mind an evident anomaly. But the fact in plain and simple language is that not only the universe, but every object in nature, as we shall presently show, is boundless in its ramifications. Boundlessness may be considered as synonymous with infinity, and there is perhaps no word suggesting ideas so incomprehensible and sublime as the word infinity. It is a word the meaning of which we cannot conceive, and yet our minds crowd on through a vast and airy field of thought, descrying in the very darkness by which we are surrounded the scintillations and coruscations of which we are led to dream. And it is because to be immortal is to be infinite that the mind thus walks upon the wind and visits fields which lie beyond its ken. For it is to give but a circumscribed notion of infinity to suppose that it can belong to deity alone, or to the eternity in which deity dwells. It is not sufficiently realized that eternity is one, and infinity is one. The infinite is that of which we cannot conceive, the point at which the imagination can never arrive, and yet the infinite may be created. There may have been a time when all with it was darkness, and it may be able to date the moment of its birth, although it never can be that of its consummation. We may see a world first launch forth through the fields of space, and if it were given us to know that planet was destined to run an immortal career, to know that after passing through a series of revolutions, each in itself boundless to our eye, it should become etherealized. Why? Because we saw it drink its first beam of glory, because we saw it dart its first fires over the concave of creation, and pour its first fragrance through the atmosphere. We should not the less regard it as an infinite in the germ, as an immortal in the bud. And it is when viewed in this light that the universe presents an aspect of unbounded and unlimited creation. As far as the eye of intelligence can glance, it sees matter, and that matter in a state of motion. And it casts its eye upward, it loses itself, and if it casts its eye upward, it loses itself in a wilderness of worlds. And if it casts its eye downwards, it loses itself in a wilderness of ages. If it analyze a drop of water, it beholds it peopled with forms of life so infinitesimal that all power of calculation drops the wing and flags in the august attempt to convey the idea of number. But it will be said that, properly speaking, this does not convey the idea of boundlessness. Although, it may be said, imperceptible to us, creation doubtless has a termination, and if our apprehension were greater, we might calculate the animalculi which swarm in the drop of water, and the stars which wandered through the nebulae. Yet even this is doubtful. It is ground for more than hypothesis. We certainly dare not say that nature is not boundless in its extent. We must measure objects by their ends. And if, after tracing them accurately through a long series of processions and circumstances, we at last lose sight of them in a vast void, which no plummet can fathom, no compass describe, no telescope scan, no chronology date, what is that but infinity? An instance is at hand. Let us throw a glance over our globe's unwritten history. Let us trace it through all its gradations up to the present time. And what are the conclusions we derive from the facts? We are conducted to a period of wild and fearful grandeur, the reign of darkness and chaos, when the atoms were first congregating which were to form our planet, and attained a state of fixedness, the grosser separating from the more aerial, and thus the earth gained the first stage of its existence. Now from that period, when the thunder and clash of contending atoms, struggling with their own gravities, broke the stillness of our system, there has been a constant progressive development of order, and a progressive development of life on our globe. First, when our world was a vast ocean, with no land to margin its streams, we find the trilobite and mollusk moving through the watery depths, and dwelling securely there. The Natulutae then by the thousands rode the waves, and hoisted their sails, aye, perhaps more proudly than in our time. The waters again subsided. Our world became then, in a more strict sense of the word than now, a terra aqueous globe. Then the Saurian tribe, those giants of the fell and flood, came to run their career. They finished it, and then rose matchless forests, composed of the lepidodendron and coniferae, where the megatheriums and dinotherium roamed. To these succeeded our present fair green earth, with its streams intersecting valleys clothed with corn, and its cascades flashing down from the mountains crowned with snow. And here man exists with a soul. Never have a similar race of beings before graced the garden of our world. The world is now in the greenness of its glory, the freshness of its spring, and these facts bear out the notion that its career will be boundless. Destined for final conflagration it may be, but never for a funereal pile. Those flames will only purge it from corruption and make it a brighter and better world. 10,000 pent-up volcanoes may belch forth and pour their liquid lava over every portion of our green globe. They will but etherealize it. They will impart to it immortality which it bore not before, and make it a fit residence for beings etherealized and as immortal as itself. Thus in destiny the material world, if not the material universe, is boundless. But let us dissociate this view of the case from the reader's mind. Let the universe stand as it still stands, and it is boundless, else show us the walls which mark the limits of creation, boundless, each show us the window whence we may look forward into the depths of non-existence, boundless, else classify the illimitable ocean tribes, and count the stars which wander through the upper depths. Boundless, why every step we take in science tells us of immensity undreamed of before. Let us lay our hand on any one branch of physical science or natural history, and boundless is the termination to all our inquiries. The venerable sires of philosophy in every age have felt themselves bewildered by a glance at nature, and our higher degree of knowledge has given to us a thicker shade of darkness. Chemistry, while it describes to us 54 simple substances, does not forget to tell us that it went no further, simply because it could go no further, and not because there appeared to be an end of its doctrine. In geology, we are darker still. We wander on through a million of ages, and seem to gain no point. Nay, what is all science but a subterranean temple by torchlight? The brightest coruscations it reflects serve but to reveal a deeper darkness than we thought existed before. The ray of light trembles on some ruined pillar. We copy the hieroglyphic, but we cannot decipher it. And as we wander on through the long temple, column after column attracts our notice, full of meaning, but darkness invests them all. But we must not conceal from ourselves that discovery and knowledge are light, although they leave many additional doubts and perplexities upon the mind. The joy which rushes over the spirit of the discoverer after his long years of patient study is too great for him to mark. The darkness from his discovery only stands out, as it were, in bold outline. Philosophers have in all ages been ascending, as it were, an inclined plane, and every succeeding age has left those of the preceding far behind. If we may quote a noble illustration from the splendid work of Professor Nichols on the architecture of the heavens, we might suppose a North American Indian who had been buried the whole of his existence in one wild wood, and had never dreamed of the existence of other woods, far less of other lands. Yet one day he arrives in the chase at the foot of a lofty mountain. He ascends it, and he finds fresh scenes of green glory rushing on his eye. He sees forests stretching all around him, and wild streams dancing amid valleys of which he had never dreamed before. And he stares and starts with wonder and amaze. Yet we know that he has seen nothing, and that what his eye thought so vast was but a mere speck in the circle of the world. And are we not realizing the wonder of the Indian every day? What are our proud observations but rising knolls? Are they so much in the universe, whence we can descry here a stream and there a stream, here a forest and there a forest, while the vast and sounding ocean and the mountain chain and nature's more attractive glories are hid from our eye? We said they were hid from our eye, but suppose we were able to perceive all. Would not the very vastitude by which we were surrounded, when made so manifest, become painful? If our eyes were so open that we could see the atmosphere which we inhaled or exhaled, crowded with animal existences, the water which we drank teeming with life, and if we saw that at every step we took we crushed millions of insects, would not our position be horrible? Should we not loathe ourselves and loathe the world? Philosophers would not then see the wisdom in the economy of creation which they now see. An awful blindness would settle on the eyes, and only would they wake to create a shudder at the horrible forms by which they saw themselves surrounded. An idea something like this seems to have flitted across the masculine mind of that prince of novelists, Bulwer, B-U-L-W-E-R. In his Arasmenes, an allegorical tale, in the second volume of The Student, he represents his hero as having his eyes thus opened, first to beauty, and second to deformity. The baronet states that it originated not altogether in fiction, but from a melancholy case of a hypochondriasis which came under his own observation in Italy. The patient, a man of genius and a philosopher, expired under the impression that he was surrounded by life in the most horrible forms, entering into the atmosphere he inhaled and mingling with every circumstance of his life. But what is the universe? It is sufficient to describe it as the area of creation, the theater where God works his manifest marvels in the eyes of all intelligences. The universe is an invisible world. It is haunted through all its extent with things of life, and doubtless there are eyes which see them better than ours. What are the views which open to the inhabitants of the planets, these moons and satellites? What a boundless theme for conjecture, the varied characters, feelings, and emotions of the dwellers on these immense bodies which roll so far beyond us. But the scene from the smallest, namely the moon, must be the most interesting to ourselves. The earth, to the inhabitants of that body, must seem the most splendid orb in the vast field of creation with a surface 13 times larger than she appears to us. They can plainly distinguish our seas, apparently unruffled by storms. They can behold our immense mountains and caverns, and glory in the splendor reflected from our planet, as we joy in the pale rays emitted from theirs. The universe is boundless. There are many, doubtless, who will think that we have laid down an axiom, but by no means logically or mathematically proved it. And perhaps this arises greatly from the fact that there seems no necessity to do so. Why labor out an elaborate essay to prove what every schoolboy believed, that boundlessly we are surrounded by evidences of mind? Let the moon be no larger than the shields of our sires, the stars but insignificant somethings which appear to gem the vault of night. And even then the universe to us is boundless. But tell us of laws which rule those stars. Tell us that the sun is 1,000,000 times larger than the earth, and that the nearest of those twinkling stars, which seem so small, is 32 millions of miles distant, and the frame is paralyzed at its own insignificancy. The gazer turns from the mighty orbs, wheeling their ponderous forms through space, and shudders and shrinks within himself, horrified by his own puerility in the eye of the mighty architect. Nay, O man, shrink nor shudder not. Thou art second only to those august and majestic fires which flash in majesty and roll in might through nature's gloom. Nay, O man, thou art more. On thy brow is the stamp of eternity, for thou art the image of thy Maker, God. And though the stars perform in grandeur their motions and sweetly sing as they wheel onward in their spheres, thou art more curiously wrought than they, and thy life more curiously sustained than theirs. The hand which first launched them away, the finger which first gave to them their unalterable law, has never touched them since. They have but one principle to govern them, but one law to guide. But thou, O man, art thou Maker's masterpiece. Every gland, every bone, every muscle attests a special design worthy of a god. Nor canst thou breathe unless 60 billions of separate intentions put forth their energies. Thou art greater than a star, O man. Boundless immensity, whither am I carried? Where is that mighty goal, the destination of these awful travelings? Stars cannot tell, onward they sweep in matchless myriads, and the gleams reflected on their surface tell of stars beyond them. They are not the goal of boundlessness. Waves cannot tell. They roll and clash and roar. They ripple at our feet or thunder on our vessels. Images of eternity, they cannot tell. We see neither their beginning nor their end. They are not the goal of boundlessness. Winds, mighty winds, harpers of the mount, and the forest and the glen, ye shall tell, for often ye are silent, and ye wake no response around ye. No, the winds cannot tell. Some leaf is always moving, some breeze is always sighing, some tempest is always swelling, to indicate their restless activity, to speak the presence of their power. Winds cannot tell. They are not the goal of boundlessness, and naught in nature can tell, for all is action, all is boundless. No eye hath ever been blinded by the darkness of that part of space where God is not in his works. A void in the universe. It would be at once to say that deity has expended his machinery, that there was a void in the divine mind. Let us allow that there are parts of space unpeopled with the creations of intelligence, and by a very slow process of reasoning, we may reduce the plenipotency which arms the eternal to the weakness and imperfection which mark the creature. We can form no conception of deity, but we know that the majesty of his power has crowded all space with the mighty configurations of his glory. A boundless universe. Then there is no such being as an atheist. And here we take up the beautiful idea of that first modern classical essayist, John Foster, in his important essay on the dearth of Christianity among men of genius. He reasons thus: how can men deny the existence of a deity unless they have traveled through all space to discover whether he might not have revealed himself? Every record of all time of every land must be laid open before the atheist. Every planet and star must unfold its history. And if there be other bodies far off in space, governed not by planetary law, and neither planets nor stars, but inhabited by intelligences, their history must be known too. And until he knows this, and has inquired at all these places whether deity has never been known to reveal himself, he is not at liberty to say there is no God. Okay. This idea has been borrowed and carried out by Dr. Chalmers in his Bridgewater treatise. Tough word. But oh, why should we travel so far when boundlessness breathes all around, and that boundlessness created by God? Boundlessness is written in letters of lightning on the black thunder cloud. We know not whence it cometh, nor whither it goeth. Boundlessness on the petals of the flower, bowing on its calyx. Myriad veins defy the most intense microscopic ken. Boundlessness in the colors of the rainbow, in the fires of the aurora. The insect and the animal tribe with all their train. The universe, in all the extent of its creation, teems with boundlessness, and that because God himself is boundless.